Hello and welcome to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. I'm Katherine Zeltner in our Washington, D.C. studio. It is truly good to have you here with us. President Donald Trump declares he's going to let Obamacare fail after Republican efforts to repeal and replace the healthcare overhaul implode in Congress. The announcement comes after two Republican senators, Utah's Mike Lee and Jerry Moran of Kansas, said they would vote no in a critical GOP healthcare vote expected to take place as soon as next week. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell proposed a vote on a backup plan to simply repeal the statute, but Republicans are backing out of that option too. Trump took to Twitter to criticize the party's failure because for 7 years, the GOP has pledged to repeal President Barack Obama's law. Marjorie Dannenfelser is closely monitoring the healthcare negotiations and what it all means for pro-lifers. She's the president of the Susan B. Anthony List and joins us now. Marjorie, thanks for being here this important week.
I'm so happy to be here always, Catherine.
Thank you. First, it looked like Obamacare wouldn't be replaced. Now it doesn't look like it will be repealed. What do you make of all of this, and what does this mean for the pro-life movement?
Well, this is a constantly moving bill. It's all over the place. It is quite a battle. Here among a pro-life House, a pro-life Senate, and a pro-life White House, there are a lot of other issues going on in this health care bill. Everybody knows that. One non-controversial piece, oddly, is the abortion issue. It is the majority in all those places. So right now, we have a little bit of a setback. I just got back from the White House, and we're talking about next steps and what to do now. Defunding Planned Parenthood is not off the boards, and it's what we still have to fight for. We were obviously disappointed and really devastated because it at least was an improvement. One thing that you can never do is lose hope, and we certainly are not. We're fighting.
That is my next question about defunding Planned Parenthood, because if this bill passed, it would have defunded Planned Parenthood. So what's the step now?
Well, yes, that's right. It would have, but there's still a reconciliation bill that can be used. What will it be used for? It could be used for tax reform. It could be used for defunding Planned Parenthood. So it is still there. It is still a vehicle for doing the right thing, and we're going to press for that. I mean, truly, even today, like right before I came on the set, we're getting calls from the Senate. The motion to proceed to the bill, we think it's possible we might get those votes. So it is really not over till it's over here. So keep watching and really advocating.
Absolutely. This week marks 6 months into Trump's presidency. At what point do we need to say Planned Parenthood should be defunded?
Well, day one of his administration, day 2, day 3, day 30, until it is done. Period, the end, not just for a year, but forever, and all of it, not just 89% of it. So the battle is not finished until the job is done. And when you think about what's at stake, these are little boys and girls meant for this world. You can't stop. If it was just about tax reform or something else that was really important, you could maybe, start to lose hope and maybe just drop off. But no doing that right now.
Marjorie, thank you. And I want to get your take on this next story as well. An American doctor specializing in treating rare genetic conditions travels to London to assess 11-month-old Charlie Gard. Baby Charlie has mitochondrial depletion syndrome, a rare genetic disease that's left him brain damaged and unable to breathe unaided. His parents want Charlie to try an experimental treatment, but doctors at Great Ormond Street Hospital argue it won't help. The doctor from Columbia University who is assessing Charlie testified in a court hearing last week the treatment was worth a try. We're going to speak shortly with a pro-life lawyer who was present in that London courtroom. But first, Marjorie, this 11-month-old baby has captured the world's attention. What do you make of this case as an American pro-life leader?
Well, the international community and certainly the American pro-life community and beyond pro-life boundaries have really stood up and said, you know what, an institution, a judge can never love a child like its parents. An institution like a government isn't capable of doing that. And when they are in a position of having to argue against a court or argue against a hospital, that they ought to be able to discharge their child to try to save that child's life when there is hope for the child, even if it's a little while, to die at home. And for that institution, who has not seen every step of the way the love and joy and the dedication of those parents to say, no, we won't allow it, is a presumption of death. And in fact, the presumption of death leads to the, quote, advocate for Charlie in the court, who has turned out to be an advocate for mercy killing, basically. So there is no justice here, and the world is watching England right now. And let's wait and see what they do. I believe with Catherine's help and with others and with more people speaking out and thanking Trump and others for stepping up, that we really have a shot of watching this boy live longer.
Absolutely. We'll have much more on this case. Marjorie Dannenfelser, president of the Susan B. Anthony List, thank you.
Thank you.
On EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, we speak out against attacks on life, and we highlight actions that support life. This week, we want to commend and thank President Donald Trump for his involvement in the Charlie Gard case. You too can thank President Trump and his administration for speaking up to protect baby Charlie Gard in this week's Call to Action. Go to prolifeweekly.com to tell President Trump thank you for speaking up for Charlie. Simply type in your name and your email address and click Add My Name. President Trump has publicly voiced his support for Charlie Gard, tweeting out, "If we can help little Charlie Gard, as per our friends in the UK and the Pope, we would be delighted to do so." Charlie's mother has said Trump's actions, along with Pope Francis's, were the biggest factors in keeping the 11-month-old alive so far. It is an example of a pro-life action we support, and we must encourage the president to continue to speak up in defense of life. You can send your thank you to President Trump by going to prolifeweekly.com. Let's make our voices heard so President Trump knows we want this type of pro-life action to continue. Missouri lawmakers are at a standstill on broad pro-life legislation more than 1 month after Republican Governor Eric Greitens called for a special session to deal with abortion issues. The legislation calls for several new regulations, such as annual abortion clinic inspections. But one provision is causing confusion. One ordinance would prevent local laws from harming pregnancy care centers. But several media outlets claim it would discriminate against women who have had abortions or who use birth control. Missouri Governor Eric Greitens joins us from St. Louis. Governor, thank you for your time.
Catherine, it is great to be on with you. Thank you for having me.
Governor, you released a Facebook video to take on what you call fake news surrounding this pro-life ordinance. Can you clarify, what would this legislation do? What would it not do?
Yeah, absolutely, Catherine. Look, I'm pro-life, and I believe it's important for us to stand up and to protect the lives of the innocent unborn. And we called a special session of the legislature to make sure that we were able to protect pregnancy care centers here in the city of St. Louis and throughout the state of Missouri. But then we had liberal media organizations with information that was supplied to them by the National Abortion Rights Action League. They had radical politicians coming in. And you had liberal media stories saying that if a woman in the state of Missouri was using birth control, that she could be fired. They were writing stories saying that if someone got pregnant, they could get kicked out of their housing. This was absolutely fake, false news. And unfortunately, we see this too many times when the liberal media comes out to attack conservatives and pro-life efforts.
Why do you think there is so much confusion over this specific pro-life ordinance?
You know, I think this ordinance is actually really clear. What it does is it protects our pregnancy care centers. These are wonderful organizations throughout the state of Missouri that work with pregnant women and newborn children, helping them to get a good quality start in life, they provide them with education, with shelter, with training in jobs so that they and their young families can get a good start in life. But we had radical politicians in St. Louis who wanted to create what many people called an abortion sanctuary city, where they would actually discriminate against pregnancy care centers so that they couldn't, for example, hire pro-life workers. We came out and we said very clearly, we're going to step in and protect our pregnancy care centers. But then you saw organizations like the National Abortion Rights Action League, San Francisco Gate, Newsweek, other members of the liberal media putting out these fake news stories. That's why we're so glad to be able to go directly to the people.
Now, Governor, as you mentioned, you did call the Missouri legislature back for a special pro-life session to move this legislation forward. That's an unprecedented move. What prompted it?
Well, look, it was so important for us to stand up for the cause of pro-life and for us to protect these pregnancy care centers. And politicians failed to act. You know, the politicians should have done their job, but they failed to act. So I did. I canceled their vacations and I brought them back for a pro-life special session. And I'm convinced that we're going to get the job done.
Governor, you've publicly shared why you are pro-life, and one of those reasons you've said is because you've seen the value of true love and compassion in one of Mother Teresa's, now St. Teresa's, homes for the destitute and the dying. Can you share more about that experience when you were there and what that was like?
Yeah, I had a wonderful opportunity. I was really blessed to work in one of Mother Teresa's homes for the destitute and dying in Varanasi, India. I also went to Kalighat in Calcutta, and I had an opportunity to see Mother Teresa's work in action. And I will tell you, there was so much humility, so much courage. It was a tremendous inspiration to me then and still is today. And I think that all of us need to bring that same kind of humility and that same kind of courage to the work that we do on behalf of the cause of pro-life.
Finally, what more would you like to see from your fellow governors when it comes to defending life?
Well, I think we do have to defend life, and we need to step forward and be willing to let people know that we are pro-life. We know that we're going to get attacked by radical organizations like the National Abortion Rights Action League. We know that radical politicians are going to come after us. We've seen what the liberal media will do, but I'm convinced that when we stand up on behalf of the cause of pro-life, that people, not just throughout Missouri, but throughout the country, will stand up and join us, and I'm proud to stand up on behalf of the cause of life.
Governor Eric Greitens of Missouri, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Pleasure to be on with you.
Turning now to more pro-life news, a religious liberty law firm files a federal lawsuit against Hawaiian legislation that forces pro-life centers to promote abortion. Alliance Defending Freedom represents a network of pregnancy care centers and says a new Hawaii law preys on women and girls to generate profits. It requires pro-life pregnancy care centers to post large signs or provide flyers advertising the state of Hawaii provides free or low-cost access to comprehensive planning services, including abortion. Abortion advocates are trying to block 4 new pro-life laws in Arkansas. A federal judge has not ruled on the challenge to the laws, 3 of which are set to take effect next month. The laws include a ban on dilation and evacuation abortion procedures and put restrictions on how aborted baby tissue is disposed of. 2 major pro-abortion groups have sued the state over the restrictions, calling them unconstitutional. A group of U.S. pro-life leaders are back in the States after attending high-level meetings in London to work towards transferring baby Charlie Gard out of Great Ormond Street Hospital and into experimental treatment. One of those pro-life leaders includes Catherine Glenn Foster, the president and CEO of Americans United for Life. Catherine, thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. You just got back from London. Tell us why you went.
I went because I had been talking with Connie and with Chris, Charlie's parents, and they asked me to go. And at that point, as a mom myself, and knowing that baby Charlie stood a better chance with me there than not, I felt it was my duty to go.
And what was seen as a surprise, the UK decided to take up another court hearing last week. You were present there. What struck you the most?
Well, Mr. Justice Francis asked for new evidence in that hearing, and boy, did he get it. It was just incredible. The scientific statistics and figures that came out of that hearing, and just that probable likelihood of success of this groundbreaking new treatment for Charlie and the possibility of improvement that he might be looking at.
There's so much hope there, it seems.
There
are reports that the lawyer representing Charlie is the head of an assisted suicide group. What kind of implications could that have in this?
Well, yes, there are reports coming out that this lawyer representing Charlie's guardian is the chair of the board of trustees of this group. And that's just one of many things that the public is so interested in this case. And we see how this has captured the world, from Pope Francis issuing a statement, President Trump tweeting, Cher and Lindsay Lohan, and 37 European parliamentarians, the more than 500,000 people who have signed the Citizen Go AUL-hosted petition, and growing every day. We're trying for 1 million by the Sunday rally that we're holding at 3 o'clock just down the street from the hospital in London. So you see how the entire world is captured by this, and even my own relative, who is not with us on life issues, it was telling me how proud she was that I was over in London and fighting for baby Charlie. And to me, that speaks volumes to the breadth of interest and how there's something deeper at play here.
And how a baby can really change the world and capture attention like this. Now, you are a lawyer yourself. What do you find most concerning in the Charlie Gard case?
I think it's about the core principles, honestly. When you think about an institution that was created to care for the most vulnerable in our society, that was hired to care for baby Charlie, to treat him, to do everything that they could on his behalf for his welfare, and here they've gone to court over and over and over, fighting against his parents, his mother and father, who are by his bed 24/7, who are the people who know him best and carried him for 9 months and have been with him for 11 more months. And you just think of that and how they've gone back to court again, and what a betrayal that is. That strikes me.
Now, you mentioned that you were invited by Charlie's parents to go over there. I know you spent a lot of time with them. How are his parents, Connie and Chris, how are they holding up in all of this?
It's incredibly hard for them. In fact, Friday night, there was a hearing all day, preparing for the hearing with the lawyers, and then in the hearing, and then meeting after the hearing, and they were only able to go back to his bedside at 8 p.m. And so you talk with Connie and Chris, and you hear just the pain of how busy this is, and how they're being kept from him as they fight for him. And it's as frustrating and heartbreaking as it would be for any parent. And here they are, young parents, first child, and it's hard.
And I know you got to go to the hospital and see baby Charlie yourself. How is he?
He is a beautiful baby boy. He is 11 months old. He's chubby. He's growing, and I got to hold him and kiss him, and he is just as precious as you can imagine.
Catherine, what do you hope that people who are watching this and watching the case unfold and develop, what do you hope they take away from all of this?
First of all, take away the love of parents for children. These parents love baby Charlie. Connie and Chris just adore him and would do anything for him. And so it's about family. It's about that core institution in society, in every society. And it's about making sure that we have laws that promote life over death, institutions that promote life over death, and just a society that's working alongside parents so that they can work to save their child's life instead of trying to tear them down at every turn.
I know you were there with a few other U.S. pro-life leaders. We'll have a story on one of them in just a little bit. Catherine Glenn Foster of Americans United for Life, thank you.
Thank you.
When we come back.
In response to what happened with Terry, we just felt this calling to do what we can and use the resources that we received or obtained during Terry's case.
The brother of Terry Schiavo, Bobby Schindler, opens up about how his sister's life and death inspires his work today. Stay tuned as EWTN Pro-Life Weekly continues after this break. Welcome back to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. I'm Catherine Zeltner. This week we are speaking out against naive, uninformed, and dangerous speculation surrounding the church's teaching on contraception. Melinda Gates, in an interview with BBC, said she is optimistic the Catholic Church will change its teaching on contraception to help women in developing countries. Melinda Gates is the wife of billionaire Bill Gates. The two of them run the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Melinda Gates, in her interview, said, "I think what this Pope sees is that if you're going to lift people out of poverty, you have to do the right thing for women." The church will never change its teaching on contraception, a teaching it has held from the beginning, because the marital act has inseparable unitive and procreative meaning. The church will never change its teaching, not because it's some rigid institution stubborn in its ways. No, quite the opposite. The church, as mother, will protect what truly is the right thing for women. Even low doses of oral contraceptives are a Class 1 carcinogen. They raise women's chances of suffering a heart attack, stroke, pulmonary embolism. The church's teaching on natural family planning, on the other hand, is a beautiful one that celebrates how a woman's body naturally works and draws married couples closer together. Melinda Gates, the church's teaching on contraception is not one a pope can simply change, and I encourage you, instead of handing out birth control as a false solution to poverty, to dig deep into what the church says on this matter. Because if you're open to it, I'm optimistic. You'll find the beauty and truth inscribed in its teachings. Remember, there is something you can do to counter today's culture of death and promote life. Follow this week's call to action and thank President Donald Trump for supporting baby Charlie Gard's right to life. You can send your thank you by going to prolifeweekly.com. The case of 11-month-old Charlie Gard puts a confusing medical situation into the international spotlight. But for one man, personal experiences have prepared him to help the Gard family navigate through this time. Bobby Schindler became involved in the Right to Life movement after his sister, Terry Schiavo, had an unexplainable collapse in 1990. Her medical case captured the world's attention and led Schindler to start the Terry Schiavo Life and Hope Network. That story is this week's Pro-Life Focus.
I always remember having a great sense of humor. She had a real devotion, a real love for animals. She wanted to be a veterinarian. She wanted to work at a zoo.
Bobby Schindler describes the sister he knew before the world met her. Teresa Marie Schindler, or Terry as she was so often called, was born on December 3, 1963. She would go on to marry a man named Michael Shivo and move from Pennsylvania to the Sunshine State of Florida. But on February 25, 1990, at the age of 26, Terry had an unexplainable collapse while home with her husband.
There's so many things that are reported about my sister's condition back when the case was occurring and even to this day that are just inaccurate.
No diagnosis has ever been made, but medical records indicate Terry suffered a brain injury caused by oxygenation starvation to the brain.
She was not in a coma, not brain dead. She was not hooked up to machines. She was simply needed food, and she had, because of her brain injury that she experienced, she had difficulty swallowing and therefore needed a feeding tube in order to get her food and hydration. That was the only thing my sister needed to live.
Yet Terry's husband, Michael, who was made her legal guardian, went to the courts to have her feeding tube removed. It pinned him against Terry's family and prompted a legal battle lasting over a decade. The courts ultimately sided with Michael, and on March 31, 2005, Terry Shivo died from severe dehydration after almost 14 days without nutrition or hydration. Her death publicly contrasted with a saint's.
I know a lot of people were watching what was happening back then, and John Paul was dying during that period, but he was given a feeding tube the day Terry died. So on March 31st, the day Terry passed away, Pope John was given a feeding tube that extended his life for two more days. But he died of natural causes, and really I think showed the world how you should be treated with the value and dignity, as in contrast to the way Terry was treated in such an undignified and inhumane way.
Determined to honor Terry and to uphold the dignity of others' lives, Bobby Schindler, along with his parents and remaining sister, created the Terry Shivo Life and Hope Network.
We're in place to advocate for these families and try to provide them the treatment that they're asking for their loved ones.
The network serves the medically vulnerable persons by providing legal counseling and support. Schindler says it's a growing necessity in today's world.
We're seeing more and more kind of this shift that's occurring where the physicians, ethics committees, and other people at the hospitals are now in positions to make treatment decisions for loved ones rather than parents. More than anything today, because of what's happening in our healthcare system, that you need to find a strong advocate that you would appoint if you are ever in a position where you lost your capacity to make decisions or you're incapacitated.
Terry Shivo's medical case launched Bobby Schindler on an unexpected advocacy journey. But it's a journey, Schindler says, that ultimately led him back to the Catholic Church. And for that, he thanks his big sister.
I think it was just the outpouring of prayers that people kept, they were contacting us and letting us know that they weren't only praying for Terry, but they're also praying for my family. I guess they recognized what we were going through trying to defend her. So I think it was through these prayers that just helped me and brought me back to Christ and brought me back to my faith. And I often say when I speak, all this effort to save Terry, and it seems to me that she did her best to try and save me. So.
If you or someone in your family is in need of Bobby Schindler services, the Terry Shivo Life and Hope Network has a 24/7 national crisis lifeline. Simply call 1-855-300-HOPE. That's 1-855-300-HOPE. That's it for this edition of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. You can reach us anytime at prolifeweekly@ewtn.com. I look forward to seeing you here again next week. Life is a gift. Your life is a gift. God bless.